Hey everyone, welcome to Kitchen Party. Renee, can I get a Hey everyone who's tuning in. Welcome to Kitchen Party, the live streaming show on Google+. We use Google Hangouts, which we absolutely love and adore. If you're watching on Twitter, you can follow along the conversation if you're watching live and use the hashtag KitchenParty. Renee will be following the conversation there. My name is Babette Pepaj. I am the founder and one of the co-hosts of Kitchen Party. I'm also the founder of BakeSpace.com, a website for anyone who's interested in cooking or making their own cookbook. So head over to BakeSpace after the show is over and go check it out. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Renee Lynch. Do you want to just tell the folks who are tuning in live or who aren't familiar with us yet?
Absolutely. I'm Renee Lynch. I'm a writer and editor at the LA Times. I work across a number of sections, including food and health.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. If you guys are tuning in, we host the show every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can always find us at BakeSpace.com. Today's episode is something very, very different than what we normally do. Sometimes we have cookbook authors, but we've expanded it a little bit to a really cool memoir that has a lot of recipes in it. One of my neighbors, we were walking our dogs, and I started hearing her story, and I started finding out a little bit about her background, and I had found out that she had just written and published a memoir called The Marriage and the Mattress. Jacqueline George is joining us live from Los Angeles as well. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you. So obviously you have an accent. So where are you originally from?
From London, England.
How long have you been in the U.S.?
Since '78.
Very cool, very cool. So now, where did the name come from? The Marriage and the Mattress.
My whole life probably stems from my bed. I seem to, I write there. I take phone calls there. My whole life centers around my bed, it seems. So, and this particular bed that's on the cover of this book, my ex-husband and I bought after his first affair. So we thought that, we should start afresh in a new bed. And so the front cover is the bed and the teddy bear that I've had since I was 14, who seemed probably more than he should.
Okay, wait a second. First affair, what?
I told everyone at home this will be a little bit different of a show. I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight already.
I'm reading this summer, I can tell you right now.
Renee, have you ever used food? Because I think the theme of this book is really about memories that are evoked with food, and also having food as a way to sort of heal. And there's so many great recipes in the book. Renee, do you ever use food to, like, I use cupcakes. Like if I'm feeling down or whatever, I'm like
medicate.
Yeah. Or gin and tonic. I've used a gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. Babette, I love the topic of tonight. I love the food memoir. I just think that's a wonderful format for people, and I think it's just perfect for Kitchen Party viewers. I have to say I've definitely used food to self-medicate, both on the sad side, but also on the positive side of using food to heal ourselves. And it seems like when you've hit the skids and things are going horrible and maybe you've eaten too many cupcakes, one of the most wonderful things you can do, the most nurturing things you can do, I think, is get in the kitchen and make yourself something healthy. And I think it kind of speaks to moving forward and trying to get back together with life, because at the end of the day, feeding yourself something delicious and hopefully good for you is probably one of the most important things you can do for yourself. And I think it really just says something about the direction that you're trying to go in. So I think this is a wonderful topic.
Cool.
How about you, Babette?
I think I use it all the time. I use cupcakes. I go like, hello, cupcake. I need some more frosting on my cupcake. I'm feeling down. So, Jacqueline, what was, a lot of people think about writing a memoir and they think, they always say like, oh, this would make a great story, or when I write that book. What was the inspiration for even just jotting your story down?
Well, I had quite a lot of time on my hands, and I never thought in my life that I would write. But for some reason, I sat down and I wrote the last 2 chapters first. And my younger sister is the writer in the family. She's not a published writer, but she writes very funny emails, and she's a great, great with her words. So I sent it to her thinking that she would probably contact me in 2 weeks telling me to forget all about it. And as long as it took her to read it, she called me and said, it's so commercial, you have to do this. And so basically I wrote my stories as they came to me, and then I put it together in a book.
Wow. So can you bring us back a little bit to what before, it sounds like before things went badly, what was life like for you? What were you doing? It sounds like you were married. What was going on?
Married very young. I married actually on my 21st birthday. Very young, but I had been with my husband for 6 years, dating for 6 years, so I knew him very well. And I actually never contemplated divorce. I never even could spell the word till I think about a week ago. It's just so foreign to me. And so I imagined that this, when I got married so young, that this was forever and ever. And it wasn't, unfortunately. And I heard this fallacy that a way to a man's heart was through his stomach. And so I cooked and cooked, but unfortunately it didn't work.
What happened when things started to go wrong?
Well, he got incredibly successful, and with success you had a lot of women that want to be with a successful man, a lot of women. And men get tempted, and unfortunately they can't say no. So basically his success, it was, ruined our marriage.
Wow. Can you, without going into too much detail, could you just give us a general idea of what industry he was in?
In the music industry.
In the music industry. And so were these like kind of a situation with groupies and?
Yes,
Wow.
Groupies.
Wow. Did you, it seems like that might be a little bit topical for us in LA. We've got the Donald Sterling scandal unfolding all around us, and I'm kind of curious at what it must be like for the person at home knowing that their spouse is going out. How aware of you that all of this was happening? How did you know that he was having groupies kind of contact him?
Well, at the beginning, he thought he was in love the first time around. So he actually confessed to it, and I was making a shepherd's pie at the time, which is in the recipe book, because the recipes all really tell a story, which is why they're there. And basically, when I was putting the butter on top of the potatoes, so it would be lovely and crusty in the oven, he came in and said, "I'm in love, and I'm in love with somebody else," and that was it. And that was the first time.
Did you have any indication that something was happening?
No, I didn't actually. No, I didn't, because it was the first time, and this was before cell phones and texting. And so when he went off in the morning, I didn't. As far as I was concerned, he was in the studio, he was in rehearsals, he was editing. Nothing that I wanted to. I didn't want to interfere in his work. And so it really was a blow. It came out of nowhere.
So what happened? You're standing there in the kitchen. I'm like,
I have to read my book. Country, and we had lots of animals. We had chickens. We had, and I just said, okay, fine, but I'm not staying here. I'm gonna. And I went up to town, and I lived with my sister for a time, and the night I was leaving, I went up there for 3 weeks, and on the Sunday, the Saturday before the Sunday that I was coming home back to my home, my aunt called and said, "My son's having a party. Why don't you come?" And the last thing I wanted to do was go to a party. I'd lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks, and I was devastated. And I met somebody and fell in love. Next recipe.
Next recipe.
That's some tit for tat. I like that.
With the shepherd's pie, did you turn it off? Like instantly, were you like, "I'm never eating this recipe again"?
No, I love it.
I hope it didn't burn for you. I hope it didn't burn when we were having that conversation, because I always forget stuff on the stove. I always forget stuff in the oven. And if I'm on the phone or having a conversation with someone, it's like everything burns.
I can't cook and talk. So I used to do a lot of dinner parties when I was married, but I can't now because I need somebody there to hold conversation and pour the drinks. I can't do everything. But no, I'm pretty sure he left. He told me that night. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
So then, what happened after you met someone tall, dark, and handsome? What happened?
I can't give all the secrets away. But unfortunately, that kind of started a circle. You know, then my ex had more affairs, and then he was coming out to New York to do a show, and I followed him out to New York because I was hoping that coming out, meeting new people that didn't know us, you know, making new friends, living in a new country, we could start again. And my ex came out, we were still married, he came out a week before me to find an apartment in New York. And then I came out a week later, and when I got to the airport, he was with somebody, and that's recipe number 2.
Wow.
Man.
What is the second recipe for?
Well, you know, that was somebody I was interested in. And
what is the dish? What's the second recipe dish?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What's the second recipe dish? The first one was shepherd's pie. What is this?
They're not in order, but like after the first one was Irish stew, and then this one was probably, well, it could have been Brunswick stew, but when I found out what Brunswick stew was, which is squirrel, no, so it's pecan pie.
Oh. Squirrel. Squirrel. Is that a real pie?
Yeah, do you know? Did you know what Brunswick stew was?
No.
Me neither. Fortunately, I asked before I ate it, and I said, no, thank you.
So they were like, would you like some Brunswick? It sounds so romantic. Brunswick pie.
Exactly. Totally sounds romantic. Hey, over on Twitter, Kimberly Tronick has tuned in, and she says that she agrees with you both. Self-medication is best when served in the form of cupcakes or gin and tonic. So she likes both of those ideas. Thanks, Kimberly.
I love Kimberly. She always knows what to say to just warm my heart. You know, I think a lot of people, you know, when they think of food and like they think of like birthdays, it's like their first reaction is like, oh, the cupcakes that my family made for me, or the birthday cake. But it seems like so many of these stories have such emotional, like a backstory, that it reminds me of the movie For Water Like Chocolate. Oh. Where everything is like she cries into the recipe, and like everything that she felt in that recipe, the people who were eating the recipe could feel it as well. Jacqueline, do you think that the recipes that you have in the book kind of will put people in that mindset of what you were dealing with at the time?
I don't think. Hopefully they won't make anybody cry. Hopefully they will enjoy them. But somebody did read my book lately and said it was full of raw emotion. So maybe after you've had a batch of raw emotion, you might want to make an Irish stew for therapy.
Something warm and comforting and happy.
What was the process like when you started writing the book? It's interesting that you wrote the last 2 chapters first, because that for I think people at home who are thinking about starting a memoir, I mean, if I were to think about it, I'd be like, I'm starting from the beginning. Do I remember the first memory I have? I like that you did it in reverse. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Probably because that was the clearest memory. It was the easiest one, and then as I worked my way back, then things came back that I did, that I'd forgotten about. So for me, it was the easiest way. And as I say, I never ever thought that I would write anything, not even an essay. So I'm absolutely amazed that this actually happened.
How long did it take you to write it?
Well, over a period of years, actually. I know that sounds terrible, but only because in that time I was trying to find a publisher, which was, impossible. So then I had to get back to it again and be serious and find an editor and self-publish, so.
A lot of people who are watching at home, a lot of them are food bloggers who have ideas for cookbooks, and other people who want to create books. Can you tell us about that process of looking for a publisher? Your heart is like in your paperwork, and you're sharing it with these publishers, and you want to get it out. What's that process like?
The funny thing is, I sent it to many publishers, and I actually heard from William Morris, which I was really surprised. I got a very nice letter from William Morris when actually the first 25 pages is what they want, and now I look back, they were very raw, and I got a letter back from somebody else, and now I find that, like, if you get a letter back, that's absolutely amazing. It doesn't matter that they don't want to accept your book and publish it. The fact that they've actually bothered to sit down and write is pretty impressive. So now that I've finished it, I'm going to be sending it back to William Morris again.
You're like, oh, hello, remember this?
Did you get, when people were getting back to you, were you able to take some advice or suggestions that they had for how to improve the book?
It wasn't that detailed. It wasn't that
detailed. Okay.
Well, I really enjoyed it. It's not for us, but keep going, because I loved it. That sort of thing.
That's great. That's actually fantastic feedback, right?
Yeah, no, it was wonderful.
Super encouraging.
What about for folks who are thinking about self-publishing? What was that process like?
Oh, a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. So
awesome.
I can't tell you who to go to, because it's crazy. It's crazy. Oh, I think mine was probably more difficult because mine had recipes in it, which shouldn't have been that difficult, but they just had to be placed, which seems easy to me. But then I had the sketches as well to depict the stories, and so I guess this company just hadn't had to do that before. They'd just been used to print, Word. So it was a year of struggling.
Wow. Wow. Tell us about the sketches. Because that's also an unusual element of a food memoir. How did the sketches come about?
I think I read A Life in Provence. Is that right? There were sketches in there, and I really enjoyed seeing a small sketch of what I'd been reading about, and it just made everything clearer, more personal. And my goddaughter is a wonderful artist, and she joined me in doing this project.
Oh, that's great. I know exactly what book you're talking about in those kinds of sketches, and it's like another wonderful little element. How many sketches did you have throughout the book?
I think there's at least 16, something like that.
Oh, wow. So that's a good number of sketches.
Yes. The funny thing was, though, when I finished it, the only reason that I published it was because of my goddaughter, because I felt she's done all this work, and I cannot let it go, and for people not enjoy that, because I suddenly decided that I didn't really want everybody to know my story, which is crazy.
Well, I was going to ask you about that it seems like really pouring your heart out onto a page. What was that like?
Very easy, actually. It was very easy to do because I've made it. Yes, there are emotions in it, and I think I touch on emotions that everybody's felt. And unfortunately, 50% of people that get married get divorced. So everybody's have had these feelings and felt these emotions. And so, I've also tried to tell my stories funnily. So I hope I made people laugh more than they cried.
Did you find yourself revising things to try to hit those humor notes?
No, but I revised. I became a better writer. It took me a long time, but I became a better writer, definitely, by the time I'd finished.
One of the things that people struggle with very much is kind of self-editing and knowing when to go back and maybe take something out, or something doesn't work, or put something in. How did you work that out for yourself? Did you have an outsider who did that for you, or did you find that you had to do that for yourself?
I did professional editor, and really it was more the structure of my sentences that drove her insane than what I put in them.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose writing really wasn't my strong point. That's why it's sort of amazing that this has happened,
So even if somebody a lot of people are afraid to start writing because they think, oh my God, what if my grammar's not perfect, and what if this isn't perfect? But it sounds like your story, that would be kind of an inspiration to them, that they can feel like, well, that's why there are editors. You get a professional editor to help you work through some of that stuff.
Right. I mean, I knew what I wanted to say, but my grammar wasn't the best. And so that's what you have an editor for, you know.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. That's what spell check and having an editor is for, and copy editors. Thank God for copy editors.
Yeah, I want to put a real quick shout out on Twitter. Figtails on Twitter just tuned in. She says she loves that movie, which I think it was For Water for Chocolate, which is what I was talking about. And then also she says, who doesn't love shepherd's pie? I'm glad she didn't say the squirrel pie. That would have been really weird. But, so if you're watching on Twitter, or if you're watching on YouTube, please use the hashtag KitchenParty, and we will get back to you. Also, I don't know if you hear my little dog barking. I've been trying to mute myself every time she tries to bark, but there are folks who are walking past our windows, and I can hear this little, like, roo, roo, roo. You know, Jacqueline has the most amazing dog, by the way, speaking of dogs. It's an Old English sheepdog who, how big is your dog? Your dog's like 100 pounds?
About 120.
Unbelievable. So I definitely have to say that we are co-dog walkers on our block. So it's always wonderful to run into her, and just in hearing with Jacqueline, hearing how her book was started, hearing when she started publishing it, and then till now, it's been really cool to follow that journey. You know, for the folks who are tuning in, lots of them are into food. What are some of the other recipes that you have featured in the book, and then also maybe some of the stories, if a couple of recipes pop up to mind, what are some of the stories that go along with those?
Well, you know, I start the book off. I go through my childhood, and one of my father's favorite dish was treacle tart, and then I have wonderful memories of going to my grandmother's house.
What is that recipe? What was that again? What kind of recipe?
Treacle tart.
What is that?
Basically, it's pastry and treacle, and then you put breadcrumbs in it to give it some body and to stop it oozing out over the stove.
Renee, have you ever heard of treacle?
No, I was just about to say I don't know what treacle is.
Well, it's like a syrup.
Oh, okay.
Like a pancake syrup?
I guess so. Gosh, they have them at the Beechwood Market.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You just buy a jar of treacle?
Syrup. A treacle, yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Tate and Lyle treacle.
Ooh.
We're definitely going to have to
so
try
pastry, syrup, and breadcrumbs.
Yes.
I'm there.
My grandmother had this most beautiful house in the country, and there's wonderful memories of being there, which I've written about, and my father rowing my mother up the river with a wind-up gramophone. And so I did my grandmother's sherry trifle, which is amazing and quite potent. So I did that one.
That sounds delicious.
It is. It's mostly for Christmas. Spaghetti bolognese, chili. The good thing that came out of my divorce for me anyway is that I didn't have to eat meat anymore, and red meat or pink meat. I eat chicken and I eat fish. So my chili recipe, my bolognese recipe, my shepherd's pie are both with meat and with soy mince. And to tell the truth, if you put all the seasoning in, you can't tell the difference, because I've tried it on 3 Latin men who absolutely adore their meat, and they came back seconds and had no clue.
Have you used any of your recipes to woo new men that were based on a bad situation before that worked? You're like, I'm going to try that again.
No, I haven't. I think I gave up. I mean, you know, I remember my husband saying to me, having cooked all these gourmet meals, whenever he came home, wherever he'd been, whether it was 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was homemade bread, there was homemade soup, there was, Spanish omelette. There were anything I could leave out and make that was fresh and homemade, for him. And then he told me later on that there was more to life than cooking. So men like other things rather than just treats.
I got to tell you, I have this thing with dishes. I hate dishes to save my life. Or actually, no, I won't use the dishes story. I'll use the laundry story. I messed up Eric's laundry one time, and I accidentally put a different color in, and it ruined an entire load of laundry. And to this day, 12 years later, he will not let me touch his laundry. And I actually felt kind of bad in the beginning. I was like, oh, this is terrible. He doesn't trust me. It's awful. But then I thought, I never have to do his laundry. This is the greatest thing ever.
Exactly. That's a V for victory.
Who's the smart one now? So maybe the cooking thing too. It's like when we're so good, they expect that.
I think that's true. I think he expected that. He didn't expect any less. You know, that was how it was. So anyway, and the funny thing was that in the shepherd's pie I put baked beans, and that's the only time I use baked beans, and not those horrid ones with bits of fat floating in them, just vegetarian baked beans. And I guess in my family they were considered a little bit down market baked beans. And so he left me for a woman who could only make baked beans on toast. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. A lesson to be learned, I would say.
Now, Jacqueline, did I read right that you actually went to culinary? Did you go to culinary training?
No, I didn't. No, I did. I used to get Cordon Bleu every month, a magazine, and I used to get Fanny and Johnny, who are this wonderful middle-aged English couple who were on an English TV show. Johnny sort of got under Fanny's feet most of the time with his glass of wine, and she cooked. And I got those magazines, and I just tried everything in them. I did everything.
So that's like Renee and I. Renee's the cook, and I'm like the under-her-feet wine drinker.
You always need that person, right? You always need that person. That's the person who brings the fun.
Also, I can give you really good tips on laundry.
I have to say, I love the idea of that TV show. I'm going to have to go track that TV show down. But do you think that this situation has jaded you for perhaps another relationship? Do you think you would pour yourself into food and cooking for somebody else in the future?
No. That's the answer to that. You know, this story, this memoir, is about going through a divorce, which, as I say, too many people have. So, and then it's the four men that came along that I fell in love with after that. So there are several, relationships in that. Would I go all out to cook again for another man? No, I wouldn't.
And why do you say that?
Anymore. I think, that when I was raised, it was you were the wife, you were the cook, you took care of the family, you took care of the home, and things are very different now. So no, cooking's not that important anymore. But I love to do it.
I gotta tell you guys, I met the coolest chick. I went on a tour last week. That's why we didn't have a show. To Yosemite. Nokia was letting us test out one of their new cameras. I got this Lumia icon, which is amazing. But I was meeting a whole bunch of people who were on the trip, and one of the women who was sitting next to me, because on the tour bus we would get really sick, and if you're sitting in the back, like when you're going on the mountain, it got worse and worse and worse. So the closer you could sit to the front, the better. And she told me that her husband, she does YouTube videos, like makeup videos. She does a daily diary. She's absolutely fantastic. Her husband stays home, and so that he can help take care of the kids, so she can do her videos. I was like, I need a man like that. Who's gonna cook for me? Maybe that's what you need.
Attention,
Jacqueline.
Eric.
Yeah, Jacqueline. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we should hook you up with a man who's gonna do the exact same for you.
No, because I think at the end of the day, not everything has changed. We still need a man in our lives that we look up to and we respect, and who brings something financially to the table. I couldn't bear it if I had a man home all day. That would drive me absolutely insane.
That is interesting. I have to say, in terms of cooking dinner and stuff, we have a very traditional relationship. My husband could basically make a bowl of cereal, and he does amazing eggs, but that's it. And not only, I actually suspect he could cook a lot more, but he doesn't like to. He allows me to do most of the cooking. And I have to tell you that, like you, Jacqueline, I've been divorced, and one of the most amazing things about this new relationship with my new husband, I love cooking for him. At the end of the day, I want to come home and make him an amazing meal. And that, to me, gives me so much meaning and so much joy to my relationship, to come home and take care of him and spoil him and give him a great meal. So it's a little old-fashioned, but I love it.
Renee, you're giving Eric a lot of ammunition.
But Babette, I'm not an entrepreneur like you.
You think. Jacqueline, you said 4 men. We only covered 1.
Well, we have to do 3 more shows, Babette.
I want to have a taste of what were the other guys like.
Well, one was Irish. That's why there's Irish stew. One was from Tallahassee, which is why we had squirrel stew. One was from Cuba, and so we have Cuban recipe, and one was from Guatemala.
Okay, you gave me a really truncated version of these men. I want a little bit more. I want some more detail because they sound very interesting.
Why don't we put the cover up now and let people see, and then they can find out all these things.
Hey, where can people get your book?
On Amazon.
So they can just Google. Can they just Google your name? So Jacqueline George.
Yes, Marriage and the Mattress by Jacqueline George. And I think it kind of covers everything. It gives you a visual with the pictures. It gives you a real story, a really heartfelt story, but a funny story, and showing that there are good things that come out of bad things and bad situations, and you have the recipes. So if you have that lovely man in your life, you can cook in one of my recipes.
Any good lessons learned? Any things that you think, oh, now that I have had some time and I've actually. I'm
glad you mentioned that, Babette. My ex-husband, I had this thing, and I still do to a certain extent, that if a man wants to be with you, he'll be with you. I would hear all these girlfriends and wives, where are you? What time are you coming back? Because it's the entertainment business, right? So they're not coming back at a regular time. And I just thought, when my husband wants to come home, when he wants to be with me, he'll be with me. Well, that was a bit silly, really, because men are like big boys, and you have to give them the rules. Otherwise, they play outside the box. So my ex-husband said to me once that I gave him so much rope, he hung himself. So next time, I'm going to keep it very tight and very short.
That guy sounds like a bit of an ingrate, if you ask me.
What?
I'm gonna go have a talk with my husband after this show. But you gave him so much rope that he hung himself. That seems very unfair.
It does, but then I think most men would do that. Like I say, they're like little boys, most men. So if they've got time to play and you don't mind them playing, then that's exactly what they'll do. And if they can get away with it, that's what they'll do. Most men, not all, but most.
Right. I'm going to be like, oh dear, we're having a talk after this.
He's like, actually, we've never seen Mr. Lynch on video. He should put his head into the screen and say hello.
He'll have to come by
to the group, because everyone who's watching wants to know. Big Tails also said on Twitter, she said, at BakeSpace, wait, you already have a man. You can't have dibs on another. Yeah, that's true. And then also Renee Lynch, Big Tail also said, if your husband is ever out of town and you feel that same way, you can come over and cook for me.
You've got a deal.
Actually, we should have a kitchen party potluck. That would be really fun. Idea. That would be, and then get some of the people who were our guests to come together and cook some recipes, maybe from all their cookbooks. Jacqueline, we have a ton of cookbook authors who come onto the show, and it's always amazing their stories of why they created the cookbooks, why they, the process of actually getting it published, and also the fallout too of having fans and blogs. Do you have a website that you are selling your book on as well besides Amazon, or is there a place that people can go online and find out more information about you?
Well, I have my YouTube video, which is called A Memoir of a Shepherd's Pie, and they can actually see me make a shepherd's pie and tell the story, and they can get the link to my book.
What is your YouTube username?
I have no idea.
Oh.
But if you type in a memoir of a shepherd's pie.
Okay, good. That's cool. Now, anything that you did not put in the book that you wish you had, or
No, I pretty much put everything in there I dare put in.
anything that you're like, oh, I shouldn't have put that in?
No, but I tried to keep it. Well, I did put something in the last 2 chapters, but my sister edited out straight away. So after that, I had to be good.
How was that like working with your family members, like when they're reading the book?
Well, my sister didn't read it until my younger sister didn't read it, my critique until just recently, and I don't know. I didn't get a very good response from her. But they say you shouldn't care about your family. You know, you shouldn't worry too much about what your family think. And my older sister read it, and it's made us much closer. It's made us much closer, and I think she finally gets me. And she said it was a great read. I really enjoyed it. So.
You know, they do say genius is never appreciated at home. So the people who know you will not understand your geniusness. And also, you know, I have a little sister who is 21 years old, and or actually, I think she's 20. Oh no, she was 21 because this was the conversation. I said to her, I said, do you realize that when you were, what age you are now is the age I was when you were born? And it hit her for the first time. She's like, wow, you were just getting your life together at that time. Like, you didn't want to hang around with babies. And I'm like, yes, that's it. I didn't abandon you. And it was like the first time that we had a real conversation as like sister to sister about, she understood where I was at that time in her life. So is that kind of the same response you had from your sister?
From my older sister and I've never been really close, just the way it is. And when I came over here, I think she probably thought I was like having a party every day for the last 30 years. And she didn't ask me about myself or what I was doing or if I was seeing anybody, you know. So when she read my book, then she got to know me and understand me. And now we're going off on a holiday together.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Renee, do you have siblings, Renee?
Hang on just one second. I muted my mic because I just found Jacqueline's YouTube video, and I'm just tweeting that out right now. And you know, I do have siblings. I have a younger brother. And
hey, what's the username on YouTube?
It is Jacqueline George 44.
Perfect. Now we know.
I just tweeted that out right now. Jacqueline, that kitchen that you're in looks gorgeous. It looks.
I was thinking I should make a recipe, and you guys should come over and we'll chat while I'm cooking.
Oh, I want to cook in that kitchen. What is that? It looks beautiful. There's an amazing backsplash in there, multicolored.
That's because everybody gets in the kitchen. You know, when you're cooking, that's where everybody gets. It doesn't matter how amazing your living room is. That's where your guests are. So I wanted to make it really, really fun.
Well, you did that. That is absolutely gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous.
You guys don't want to see my kitchen. My kitchen is like the tiniest little, it's almost like a New York kitchen in LA. It makes no sense at all. In fact, if 2 people are in the kitchen at one time and the refrigerator door is open, you can't even get in or out of the kitchen. It's really frustrating. I'm always like, get the hell out of my face.
Sounds like my kitchen in New York.
Hey, Babette, it sounds like your potluck party idea is taking off. Big Tail says she's going to be in from Minnesota, but at least she's in Minnesota, so she couldn't make it, but at least she'll send some cookies. And Kimberly says she's all in for a kitchen party potluck. She just wants to know who's going to be in charge of the cocktails.
Oh, Greg Henry.
Exactly, Greg Henry, sippity sup, right?
Jacqueline, there's a local guy, a local cookbook author here named Greg Henry. I don't know if you guys can hear my dogs now. Someone's walking by again. And he makes the best cocktails, and like savory cocktails. So they're not like super, super sweet. And it's just, he actually taught us this tomato-based cocktail with Saint Germain. And I was like, why am I buying this $18 little bottle of alcohol? And then afterwards I was like, why didn't I buy the big bottle? Renee, did you drink that whole bottle?
Good cocktail? Because like you think savory, I don't know, for some reason I think of cocktails savory cocktail maybe as being a little too sharp, or it was so wonderful. It was delicious. It was perfect. It was like summer in a glass.
It was tomatoes. Now, Jacqueline, what's next for you?
What's next? I'm off to Spain for a few weeks, and that's what's next. And depending on how that goes, if I do move to Spain, I'm thinking of writing, after I've been there a couple of years, I'm thinking of writing maybe another book called The Third Trimester. Because as you said,
you're moving to Spain?
I'm thinking about it very seriously, Babette.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And in 3 weeks, I'm going off to look at property. And so I've been thinking about writing, as I say, writing a book about moving and about starting your life in a new place at a, as I say, the third trimester. And obviously there'll be lots of Spanish, recipes in that one.
I was thinking the Spanish men.
Spanish men, hopefully, lots of them.
Why Spain? Why did that tickle your fancy?
Because I went there, I think, when I was 18, and I just love Latin men, which if you read my book, you'll see. And I love
your next book. I love Latin men. Everyone will be like, yes, that's true. I'm buying that.
Jacqueline, my husband is Puerto Rican, so I'm with you.
Oh, you can cook for him then.
He's Puerto Rican, and he's just so handsome.
Oh, I'm sure. See, that's why I'm desperate to get back to Spain again.
I can just imagine the stories that are going to come out of that move.
That's right. That's like
Renee and I are going to have to come visit.
Oh, I'm not sure I'll come back, but you can come and see Babette.
We'll take Kitchen Party on the road to Spain. That sounds awesome.
Actually, that'd be quite fun to do it from Spain, from my poolside. Oh. I can be making cocktails.
We have been trying to get some international folks. Like I'm going to the Food Blogger Connect conference in London in early June, and I have to do one of our kitchen parties from London. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? This is going to be awesome. But I'm going to try to see if I can, when I'm there, if I can meet some of the food bloggers there to see about getting them to come on and be guests on the show as well, because I think it'd be really cool. It's our timing is always weird because it's like, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we may have to, Renee, adjust our time for some of the international.
Yes. We can totally do that. Hey,
we'll have to have like a little international stamp, like Kitchen Party International.
Jacqueline over on Twitter, Figtail says that the emotion she was responding to the emotion in your voice is so sweet when you're talking about your sister, and she says she feels the same way. And then she tagged, I'm assuming these are her sisters, Ashley Sue Camp and Dalu Ness on Twitter. So that struck a chord.
Oh, good. I think if people do read the book apart, from the recipes, I think if they do read it, there'll be so much in it that will strike a chord. And you'll think, I felt that, I did that, I made that mistake, and I mean, there is one story. I mean, there's lots of stories in it, and one story actually, I literally almost killed my husband with cheese. But you're going to have to read the book to find out.
Can you give us a little sample?
That's what I gave him. That was the truffle.
Did you beat him over the head with it, or what?
I put him in hospital, and when I came to pick him up the next day, the night nurse said to me, "You're very, very lucky to have your husband. We thought he was going to die last night." So read it. You'll find lots of stories.
We have
what's a relationship like today with your ex-husband?
Sorry?
Do you have a relationship with your ex-husband today? And if so, what is that like?
No, I did 2 or 3 years ago. We've been divorced like 30 years, and I even dreamt of him last night. Funnily, I was barbecuing him a steak, so it obviously had something to do with the show, because I've never barbecued a steak in my life for anybody, for him. So, but
at first I thought you were saying you were barbecuing him.
I thought the same thing. What? I was like, I want to read that book.
How to barbecue your husband.
Not going to jail.
Right, exactly. Well, if you've seen any of the mob movies where they're like in jail with their, Parmesan cheese and stuff like that. So maybe jail's not so bad. I do want to say on Twitter though, we got at Two Broads Abroad. Judy is also tuning in. I saw that she also posted on Twitter as well. She says she's totally in for the kitchen party potluck, especially if Sippity Sup, who is Greg, who we were just talking about, is tending bar. I think we may have to convince Greg to make some cocktails for us.
Maybe we can come up with like a cheater's cocktail or something with that.
Jacqueline, do you have any cocktail recipes in the book?
No, I don't. I'm afraid I'm a white wine girl, so that's about as far as I go.
What about like white wine spritzer combination?
Well, it, Babette. You can't do that.
No, you can't put anything in white wine. Or, you know what? Going to Spain, you can do some sangrias.
Cuba.
Wait, what'd you say?
Cuba Libre.
Is that what that is?
Rum and Coke. Cuba Libre.
Is that what rum and Coke is?
Yeah.
It seems so romantic, the sound. I'm going to have a rum and Coke, or I'm going to have a Cuba Libre. I mean, yeah. It's very, very strange. We have about 10 minutes left to the show. For those of you who are watching, if you're watching live and still with us, it's awesome. I see all of our folks still online. Next week, I want to get to who we're going to have next week as well. So you're thinking about going to Spain. You're possibly leaving us, which now I'm sad because I'm your neighbor. So now I feel like doubly sad.
But don't be sad. Just think that we have somebody to go visit when we take KitchenParty on the road to Spain.
The upside, the good side.
That's very true. I do want to go through next week, for those of you who are still, Cathy Chaplin, who is Gastronomy Blog, is going to be joining us next week, which we're really excited. Renee knows her pretty well. Then we're going to be doing a TECHmunch Preview. And then Amanda, is it Retke?
I believe it's Retke, yes.
Retke, who is I Am Baker. She has an amazing book. Jacqueline, you should see this book. It's like a cake. It's like Inception for baked goods. It's like a cake within a cake within a cake. Oh, yeah.
Okay, go on, Babette.
She has these things where if you see the cake and it's this beautiful thing, and if you cut it, inside there's like a design, like a big heart.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, no, it's pretty. I'm pretty excited about it. So I've been following her career for a while, and I'm amazed at people who can do stuff like that. It's just crazy, ridiculous. I'm also amazed and impressed with people who can decide they're going to write a book and not only finish it, but try to get it published. And when all fails, even like to have total determination, you still go out and get it self-published, and you still want to look for the agent as well. I think that's pretty darn cool. Renee, do you have a book inside of you that you?
Well, I wanted to ask Jacqueline that. Do you think everybody has a memoir inside them? Because I find that very interesting.
Well, they say that everybody. I mean, when you sit down and you talk to women, everybody has an intriguing part of their life. I think everybody does have a book. I mean, I love to read memoirs. That's the only thing I read. I love to read a true story.
It's weird. I think it's such a wonderful format, too. I love memoirs, and I have to say I just love the food memoir. I just think it's such a wonderful format, so I'm glad we were able to talk about that tonight.
Good. I'm glad to be...
Over on Twitter, some people are working up a title for what I think is going to be your next book, Jacqueline. Gray-haired lady and pigtails are calling it Death by Cheese. So I think you're going to have to get back to your computer and start working on that one.
The subtitle could be I Like Latin Men. Or, I got to tell you, I love memoirs too, but I really love obituaries.
Okay.
I think what it is because it's like a story of somebody's life. Maybe it's not written by them, obviously, but it's a story of somebody's life in a really compact, like this is like their moment of achievement. This is their family. You see kind of like their entire life story. But for some reason...
So basically you're saying you don't have much attention span.
I know, I was thinking that. I was like, maybe that's... I think you may be right, but I'm for some reason I just have not had the time to sit down and like read somebody's, to read books that are not for pleasure only, but I'm trying to change that. What do you recommend? I mean, obviously I'm going to get your book, but what do you recommend to make that time for myself? What do you recommend? Do you recommend that I could grab a tea to read your book?
I didn't hear that last bit, Babette. What did you say?
Oh, what do you recommend for somebody like me who's like a little bit of a deterrent on...
Well, you have to find a subject matter. I mean, I found one the other day that was about olive. It's called The Olive Farm, and it was written by this English actress. And I didn't buy it because of her, because I don't think I've ever seen her actually in anything. But it was a woman writing a story about meeting somebody, a Frenchman, an English girl meeting a Frenchman, and they were both in the entertainment business. And they went out to France, and they found this really, really run-down villa, and started a life there together, and he had 2 children. And it was about the story of putting this villa back together and starting a life there. And, you know, to me that was really, really interesting. So, because I love to do up houses, absolutely love doing up houses, so that was a big part of it.
Isn't that kind of like just the ultimate fantasy of like finding someone and just literally from the ground up in a brand new place starting a whole life? I just never get tired of that story.
No, it was wonderful. It was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And by the time the book's finished, she's got her olives going. She's got her olives in olive oil in a jar, and life is good.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Anthony Bourdain. This reminds me of a recent episode where he went. God, I don't even remember where he. Oh, he went to Israel. He went all over the Middle East, and there was the story of this couple who they literally like packed up their stuff and moved there. And it was exactly that kind of same story of just giving everything up and going and starting fresh. And they created a restaurant, and one of them was Muslim, one of them was Jewish, and it's like this really cool dynamic. Anyways, I digress. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful talk. I'm so happy that you joined us tonight, and we're going to totally get your book. I can't wait. Thank you, Renee, for posting the video on Twitter as well, so that people can find her. And then also we can find your book on Amazon, which is super cool. Renee, do you have any final words that you want to?
Jacqueline, as we head out tonight, any words of advice or suggestions for people who may be thinking, maybe I have a food memoir in me? What would you say to them?
Just do it. Just go down and do it. I mean, I'm just kind of amazed because I am dyslexic, and there was 31 girls in my class, and I was 30th. So, school was a nightmare for me. And so to actually have written this book is just amazing. And so if I can do it, you know what they say, you can do it.
Oh, I love that. Just get a good editor, get a good copy editor, and go on your way. Because really, at the end of the day, the most important thing is your story, right? Somebody can edit it, somebody can copy edit it, but your story is your own, and there's no substitute for that. So that's awesome advice if you're interested in writing a food memoir. Now, Babette, with Cookbook Cafe, is that something somebody might be able to use to publish their own memoir?
I think absolutely. If you're watching at home or doing anything about our website, we also have a self-publishing platform for cookbooks. And each recipe allows you to basically be able to put a little bit of story to that recipe. The format is a cookbook, obviously. So a memoir, I think you could do a cookbook that's based on a memoir or based on short stories. I think would be really cool. And then we publish that as an iPad app and as a web-based ebook for free, and you can sell it in our marketplace. So if you're interested in that, you can go to cookbookcafe.com or go to BakeSpace.com/cookbooks to find out more. Or if you have a question, you can just tweet me at BakeSpace, and I'll share more information. But yeah, no, absolutely. So if someone's finding chocolate chip cookie recipes, they may discover your book. And also you could use it as a preview of your book too, like with a couple of the recipes, Jacqueline.
Oh, I love that idea. So I hope we get some people who are watching tonight sitting down and being inspired by Jacqueline and saying, you know what, I'm going to follow in her footsteps and I'm going to write a food memoir too.
I'm going to go start writing right now.
And I need a new memoir to read, so yes, get right.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for inspiring us not only to maybe get back to our computers and writing, but also just being able to move past the stumbles that come up in relationships. As you point out, many marriages end in divorce, but that's really not the end. For you and for other people, it can just be the beginning if they're willing to see it that way.
That's true. That's true. Because this would have never happened if I'd still been married. My life would have never had all these interesting stories and events. So, you know, other stories maybe, but not these.
Right. And Spanish men, watch out.
That's fine.
Well,
all right,
Jacqueline, brava. Brava.
Bye, guys.
All right, we'll see you later. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week on Kitchen Party. I wish, you know, we used to play our music all the time, and it's like we used to go, boop, 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 but now because YouTube totally gets us for our music, even though we bought our music, they won't let us play it. So we can all pretend that we're dancing.
Okay.
No?
I pretend that I'm dancing.
Hey, Jacqueline, at least you're a good sport. We appreciate that. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.